Welcome into episode 529 of the Skate Podcast. I am Brian DeFelice, joined by Bridget Prue and Scott McLaughlin. Bridget and Scott, we have a couple of games to get to today. The Bruins had an overtime loss in New York, and then they quickly turned it around. I won't give too much away because Scott, I know you're going to go there, and they had to play Nashville. They got an overtime win against the Predators. My opening shift quickly before you guys get into yours is one of the major storylines, if not the biggest storyline outside of the result of the game, was Elias Lindholm leaving due to injury. I want to say it was in the second period, and it was off of a face-off. Really difficult to see what it was. It kind of looked like just two guys battling. And after the game, Marco Sturm didn't have any further updates outside of the fact that they're going to be evaluating him, I would imagine, at some point today. So we'll see what that means for Lindholm if he's out for an extended amount of time, what that means for the Bruins. He has, I want to say, 37 points. Yeah, 37 points in 44 games this year. So he's a far cry from an elite number one center in this league offensively, but he's certainly had a much better productive year than his first year in Boston. So maybe he's not out for a long time. Maybe he's not out at all. Or maybe he's out so long that not only it costs him some games with the Bruins, maybe it costs him some Olympic action, which would suck for him personally. So just wanted to talk about that off the top, and then we can talk about that a little bit later on as well.
Bridget, you want to go next? Take the other Lindholm?
Yeah, I think that makes sense for me to go next. So when Brian said, "Oh, you're going to take Lindholm for your opening shift," I was like, "Which Lindholm?" Because I felt like they both had news. Elias Lindholm, the injury during the game, and then Hampus Lindholm has a goal during the game. But I more want to talk about what happened for him before the game, because in between our last recording and this one, he got to join or he was added to the roster for the Swedish Olympic team because Jonas Brodin got injured and needed surgery. So they needed a defenseman to come in and replace him. And he is the one who got the tap, and he knew that he was probably the next man up, which would have really been, a tough pill to swallow if he wasn't needed. But he ends up getting the call, and he's very excited about it, obviously, to get to represent his country, first time going to the Olympics, and so good for him. I think I said this before, the silver lining of him before he was named to the roster was that maybe he just gets some time to rest his injuries, and there's no chance of him getting injured in that time. Now I'm just a little bit worried, but
and he could spend time with a newborn, like that would have been a silver lining. But ultimately they'll all take the lifelong dream of going to the Olympics.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure that was just a huge phone call to get. And I know that when the first phone calls went out and you're sitting there waiting and you don't get one, that must feel really bad. So he gets added, and then you see him kind of get a spark from it. It seemed like he had a little extra motivation, came out, scored a goal against Nashville, and that wasn't the only good thing he did. He was you could just look like he had a little extra energy, a little extra pep in his step after getting the good news.
Yeah, hopefully whatever this injury is doesn't cost Elias Lindholm an Olympic trip, because that would suck. That'd be such a major bummer to be this close, to go into your first ever Olympics. You're 3 games out and you get hurt. But we'll have to see what happens there. By the way, former Bruin Marcus Johansson, also an injury addition for Sweden, going in place of Leo Carlsson, who had to back out due to injury. So obviously that's a big loss, but Marcus Johansson's had a really good season in Minnesota. Maybe we might get back to some of that, but my opening shift is about the Bruins' crazy travel. As Brian mentioned off the top, they were down in New York Monday night. They flew down there right after Saturday's win over Montreal to get out ahead of the storm. So they were in New York. They practiced at Madison Square Garden on Sunday. They were scheduled to fly home right after Monday night's game, because obviously they have another game in Boston Tuesday night. Well, their flight got canceled. The plane was unable to get to New York in time because of the storm. and it was not going to be there by Tuesday morning either. So they had to come up with another plan, and they ended up busing back. So they had to go back to their hotel Monday night, like check back in, and then early Tuesday morning, hop on a bus and make the trip back to Boston. They got into Hanscom Airfield around 1:30 p.m. Ahead of a 7 o'clock puck drop. So it seems like it was a really like a full organization effort. Morgan Geekie made sure to shout out John McLean, Bruins skills coach, shoveled out cars in the parking lot at Hanscom. So players didn't have to, then also do that once they got back, because obviously the whole blizzard came through while they were away. So all their cars were just snowed in. But they also got the team
cars.
What?
It's like going to be like 30 cars when you consider all the staff and like all the players. Like that's a long, Brian, how long would that take? 30 cars.
Oh boy.
Brian was shoveling.
I would say at least a full 8-hour day, maybe more.
I gotta imagine there's a snowblower involved. Hopefully John McClane had one, or someone had one.
Snowblower
to at least do the heavy lifting, and then get in between the cars and brush them all off and do whatever you need to do. But yeah, they also got their team chefs out to Bedford, so they had a meal waiting for them when they got back, and then players went home for literally a couple hours and then right to TD Gardens. So wasn't the prettiest win over Nashville, 3-2 overtime win that obviously we're gonna get into and break down. They got up 2-0, let it slip away. Second night in a row, they let a third period lead slip away and end up in overtime. But this time they still get the 2 points. And I think that's a game where you just happily take the 2 points however you get them, because that is a very unusual day for NHL players. It's really the Bruins would have traveled day of game just once all season if not for this, and that would have been that first game after Christmas break, where they, because of the holiday freeze, you can't travel ahead of time, and they flew out to Buffalo morning of the game. And actually that day they had a delay as well with their travel. So, but busing, a 6-hour bus ride or whatever day a game never happens for NHL players. You might get that in the AHL. David Pastrnak said, reminded me of playing juniors back in Sweden. We had a bunch of long bus rides. But yeah, it's, look, like, just to get out ahead of it, it's like, okay, yeah, we get it. They're not the plow truck drivers who worked all night during the storm and haven't slept in 3 days. Like, I get it. They're not that, but they still enter that game at I would say, a pretty sizable disadvantage dealing with that day a game while the Predators are just waiting for you in Boston. So, I think they deserve quite a bit of credit for pulling out that win.
Yeah, I have no idea what the actual amount of time was that they spent in the bus, because they said they left early morning, which isn't like, we don't have a specific time, but from New York City to Hanscom is like, if you don't get traffic, like 3.5, 4 hours I don't know. And
yeah, then, I bet it was probably like a 5-hour ride.
Yeah, because like you hit traffic on that route, so it's inevitable that somewhere in Connecticut you hit traffic. And yeah, but anyway, yeah, it's a long time on the bus for guys who haven't been having to do that in a long time. I saw that Mark Diver asked the Providence Friars goalie that they just added from the ECHL what was his longest bus ride in the ECHL. He said 9 hours, which sounds not fun. Yeah, the longest I've ever been in the car was like 16 hours when I used to live in North Carolina. But yeah, it's just, you feel exhausted. And Pastrnak said that he was like, everybody was tired. Scott asked what the entertainment was on the bus, and he was like, no, nothing. Like, we just had to rest, and nobody was really talking too much, and because after a game too, it's hard to fall asleep, which I think a lot of people can relate to after being active, and then you go and you try to lie down, or like for me doing a broadcast, like I can't sleep after that. I probably don't fall asleep till 2 a.m. and then maybe they had to get up at 6 a.m. So yeah, they were running on not a lot of sleep, and it's also hard to sleep on a bus for some people. So yeah, the fact that they didn't look completely gassed out there was pretty big.
Yeah, it was funny. Hampus Lindholm was asked if he got in a nap at all on the bus, and he was like, no, but I have a newborn, so I'm used to not sleeping. So it wasn't really any challenge for him.
Yeah, there's a couple of Bruins with newborns this season.
Geekie too. Geekie said he got home and was on baby duty, so I don't think he got to take a nap once he got home either.
So there's been a few games since we last spoke, so let's go backwards and talk about that New York game just to start things off here. And the big thing heading into that game was Nikita Zadorov not playing. He did take the ice for warm-ups, but obviously we talked about the Montreal game and how he was clearly toughening out some ailments, and we were surprised he came back into the game in the third period after having that awkward fall on his leg from Zach Bolduc's hit. And turns out that he did not play against the Rangers. It was his first missed game of the season, only his second missed game as a Bruin. With the back-to-back against Nashville and the fact that he played against Nashville, it seems that was more of a load management situation. So you go into the game without Zadorov, and then Charlie McAvoy leaves the game. Well, not the game. He briefly leaves the game after getting hit by Will Cooley in the corner. And you combine that with the Elias Lindholm injury the game later. This condensed schedule you're starting to see it's taken its toll, and these guys still have 3 games to go, and a handful of them still have Olympic hockey to go. But just as a team, don't you get the feel that you're just hoping and praying that these guys can just get to the Olympic break and get some R&R?
Well, I think that McAvoy's reaction when he got back on the bench I was like, oh no, like he looked like he was really frustrated, like, why does this keep happening to me? Like, he definitely thought that he had a worse injury that was gonna maybe keep him out. Luckily, he comes back and plays the rest of that game, plays in the Nashville game, gets the assists in overtime. They gave him an assist on that, right? Last I checked, what he hadn't given him one, but he should have had one. And so yeah, he ends up not missing any time, but he gets to the bench and he's just jamming his stick down, like so, like in frustration, and he's accidentally like punching Swayman, and like he was sitting there on the corner, and Swayman's just like pretending he doesn't see or feel anything. He'd just be like, I gotta let him do this.
Yeah, let it out, man, let it out.
Yeah, exactly. Like pretending to just be like, I'm just gonna let him have this one, and yeah, just ignoring the fact he's catching strays. But yeah, it was just based on talking to McAvoy and what he said about 2025 and how he just wants to leave it in the past because it was a year with health issues and injuries that were really difficult for him to deal with. Like, he's just worried that that's what's going to happen again this year. And so I think he had a moment of like panic of, oh man, is this happening again?
Yeah. And like, maybe it was just a stinger or something, or, might have thought in the moment that it was worse than it was, but
yeah, maybe he went down the tunnel. He took himself down the tunnel. So he clearly thought there was something worse to get looked at.
Yeah, and it was like hard to tell like exactly what it was. It's basically a shoulder-to-shoulder hit. It didn't look like there was any head contact. So I, would only be guessing at like what he might have felt. Maybe he thought it was something with his shoulder. Like we know he's dealt with shoulder issues. So yeah, but obviously good to see him come back and then play 27 plus minutes Tuesday. So doesn't look like it affected him or limited him in any way. And, Zadorov comes back in too, and you wonder if he's going to be limited because he was still a game time decision, but goes through warm-ups and he plays almost 22 minutes, 21:53. So, yeah, it seems like the Bruins have survived a couple scares on the back end, and obviously now you hope you survive a scare to Elias Lindholm up front, but, gotta wait to see on that one. But, yeah, McAvoy just continues to play outstanding hockey. So it would have really, obviously, on multiple fronts, been devastating if it had been something more serious, because he's been great for the Bruins for, a month plus now, and is really setting himself to go into the Olympics as one of Team USA's top defensemen. And he probably won't play 27 minutes there, but I would expect him to be getting 20 plus minutes of ice time for the US.
Yeah, so McAvoy has 16 points in his last 14 games, and he's on pace for a career high in terms of points per game average this season. So he's been playing really well. David Pastrnak, Scott, we were talking about it before. The number is 27 points in his last 14 games.
28.
Right? 28 now. Shows how much I was paying attention. But included in that is his 900th point that he got against the Rangers on an assist to Morgan Geekie. That was his second assist of the game. But he now has 900 points, and he was wheeling and dealing. You could tell when, obviously, the team ended up losing, so we don't want to, speak too highly of the game. But you could just talk about Pastrnak. You could just tell he was feeling confident. Obviously, he had 6 assists against the Rangers last time they played them. But sometimes you watch the screen and David's, he's fighting it. Most of the time, he's not. But then there's other games where you're like, oh, he's just next level good tonight, and at least offensively.
He was eyes on the back of his head, David Pastrnak, because I don't know how many no-look backhand passes he made that worked out. It was like a lot of them. It was like every single time he tried it, I'm like, oh, that's not good. And it worked perfectly. So yeah, it was just funny. I was like, hey, you know what? He's feeling it. Just let him do his thing. His creativity was definitely on display.
Yeah, I mean, he had the 3 assists in that game. He could have easily had another 1 or 2. Like, he set up Geekie right in front, but he pushed it wide. He made a great, but basically behind the back pass to set up Elias Lindholm right in front, but Jonathan Quick made the save. Elias Lindholm kind of shot it right into his chest.
That was when Brian tweeted "all Swedish, no finish."
Yeah, and then
he scored.
And then
twice.
He did get 2 goals. Yeah,
and then I said, I'm not sure who he's playing for the Olympics now, Sweden or Finland, but yeah, if he's healthy.
And then Pastrnak follows it up with another multi-point game against Nashville. Sets up the second goal of the game, which was scored by Morgan Geekie, who now has 5 goals in his last 5 games. But Pastrnak makes a good play to carry into the zone and basically hold up while waiting for teammates to catch up to him. Shields off the defender and then just moves the puck down to Geekie, who takes it to the net and finishes with a great shot, bar down. And then Pastrnak wins it in overtime, right? Like, just a great overtime sequence for the Bruins. Mark Kastelik goes out, wins his draw, does his overtime job that he's always out there for. He hops off. Just great, like, kind of 3-way interchange between Pastrnak, McAvoy, and Husnudinov. And you end up with McAvoy coming down through the left circle and right across the front for Pastrnak is just charging to the front and gets a stick on it for the winner.
And they were like circling too for a second, like to set that up to just try to confuse the 3 defenders, like open a lane. And I was like, at first I was even dizzy. They were going in a circle, and then perfect play by McAvoy to get it down to Pastrnak. I wonder if that's something that they practiced before, just because it looked like something like you don't just think of to try like in the moment, but maybe they did. But it kind of seemed to me like, oh, maybe this is something they worked on and it works in their practice. And then they're like, oh, let's just try it. Let's try this crazy circle thing cycle.
Yeah, so I mean, Scott, you mentioned Morgan Geekie now, 5 goals in his last 5 games, second consecutive 30-goal season. I mean, we talked about his, I believe it was a 12 or 13 game goalless drought. And all it takes is to get one, right? You get one and you get that confidence back. Confidence is a real thing. It just is. Can't really explain it any further than that. And I feel like his last 5 games has exemplified that.
Yeah, I can read Sturm's quote on Geekie coming out of his slump. He said, yeah, he was shooting pucks and he's still passing too many times. It drives me nuts. And then he was laughing and kind of making a joke about that. But he said, but now I think he's enjoying it again. I think that's the biggest thing. When you don't score, he's getting frustrated, which is normal. And it's almost like he doesn't enjoy the game anymore. And now he's a happy camper right now.
Yeah. And you could tell he was in a good mood after the game, obviously, because they had won, because he had scored again. But, even just talking about like the day of travel, he was like, yeah, like it's something we'll be able to laugh about and like look back on, because it is just such a unique experience for them. And as I mentioned before, he was also like in the mood to make sure everyone else got credit. He was the one who told us about John McClain and the chefs coming out to Hanscom. And he also highlighted Keith Robinson, that their head trainer, who apparently had to change Husnadinov's skate blade right before the start of overtime, like literally like just finished putting in the new blade, and then Husnadinov was basically jumping on the ice for Kastelik. So yeah, a lot kind of went right leading into that overtime winning goal. But yeah, for Geekie, I mean, like you said, back-to-back 30-goal seasons. At this rate, he may very well match or exceed his career high before the Olympic break. His career high last year was 33, so he's 3 away with 3 games to go before the Olympics. Obviously, he's going to sail past it after the Olympics, but
also made a joke. He made a joke. He said he got his 30th goal, and I didn't give him the puck because that's not nothing special for him anymore. Maybe I'll give him one at 40, because he's just saying like that's the norm for Morgan now. Yeah,
he's 4th player in the league to get to 30 this year, and the other 3 are Nathan McKinnon, Connor McDavid, and Jason Robertson.
Not bad company. 2 Olympians and 1 should be an Olympian. But we'll talk about that also during the Olympic break.
So I wanted to make sure I double checked it. So also, and I think this was after Geekie, but Cole Caulfield got to 30 last night. So another non-Olympian. So 3 of the 5 who have 30 or more goals in the NHL this year not going to the Olympics.
You think one of those 2 finds a way? I guess the only way would be injury, right? But I don't know. Do you think somehow, some way, one of those 2 finds a way into the roster before the Olympics, Scott? You can't do any, like, you can't rescind your original submission.
No.
Right?
Yeah. They need someone to take out JT Miller or Vincent Trocheck.
Hey, the Bruins almost did that.
I know. They were both. I know Aspro hit Miller, and then I want to say Yoki Haru maybe got us. Somehow Trocheck went hard into the end boards in the Rangers game. But
yeah.
Speaking of that Rangers game, there was something that happened in it that I know we were all kind of like, really? Which was the non-call high stick. Mika Zibanejad draws blood on Andrew Peeke, but they called a follow-through. Now, listen, the argument is that Zibanejad was a follow-through, and which, by the way, in and of itself, I think that's kind of a dumb rule anyway. I think you should be in control of your stick at all times. If you're taking a one-time slap shot and like someone's diving, and that's not on the shooter. But I don't know, the whole follow-through thing, no high stick, that's a little weak to me and to start with. But he also whiffed on the puck, so it was not. I mean, it was an attempted follow-through, but it wasn't. It's a high stick.
Yeah, that's the thing that gets me about it is like, if you don't get the puck, like, how is it a follow through? Like, so let's say
it's
that
an attempted follow through,
right? So like, let's say that puck's in the air, and I take a swing at it, swing and miss, and whack a guy standing in front of me right in the face.
Right?
Is that not a high stick? Because hey, I was trying to play the puck. Like,
10 out of 10.
Of course, it's a high stick. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I think maybe they just didn't think. Maybe they didn't realize he whiffed on it, but. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, whatever. It is what it is. I thought that was. I mean, because Andrew Peake's sitting there on the bench, like getting gauzed up on the yellow, and he's like, "Oh, okay." No,
well, and the other,
the
other crazy part about that is, so they initially called it 2 on the ice, and then went to review it. Which, by the way, they're not supposed to do. Like, you have to call it 4 and then review it. So they announced the wrong thing, or they just changed their mind midstream and decided not to tell anyone. But the fact that they called it 2 initially was crazy too, because Peeke went over and it shows the ref like my lips bleeding. And then the ref skates over to the box and goes 2 minutes high sticking. It's like, bro, you just looked at his lip and it's clearly bleeding. Like the whole sequence was a mess.
I thought I didn't realize how subjective it was when there's blood involved. I thought it was. I mean, if it's a paper cut,
really,
sure,
like,
but
it shouldn't be.
It's not supposed to be objective. It's supposed to be if you draw blood. It's
literally
4 minutes.
Is there not blood on this person? like there's a physical like thing.
No, but sometimes maybe someone's like they get a little skin from their lip peeled, and it's like a, you know, it's not actually bleeding, like something like that. I could see them being like, okay, that's not actually bleeding.
Yeah,
but
they take a good hard bite of their lip, make sure it bleeds.
Hey,
yep.
You know, but the thing is, now you can watch back on replay and see that. So you're like, oh yeah, I think he did that after. But yeah. Well, there was a guy. Wait, this is something that is totally unnecessary, but there was a guy in the stands. Scott knows what I'm gonna say. Who got hit in the puck with a puck, and then he stayed. And they showed him later in the game, and everyone cheered for him. He just had this big Band-Aid on his head, just like flapping off.
Well, and further,
it was blood.
Well, and the best part of that is a Predators player came over with a towel and flinked the towel up over the glass to the guy. So the guy has like the Predators towel, and he's just holding on his head, and he looks like he's just gonna stay there and like ride it out, stay in the game. And then I think security or like one of the medical people on the scene did bring him back briefly, obviously, just to take a closer look at it and make sure he was okay. But then he comes back with this like Band-Aid that didn't even look like it was on all the way.
No,
it just looked like it was like half on.
It was like cartoonish. It was like this really weird, like big Band-Aid that was like flapping off. I don't know. He was determined to watch, and he did get to see the Bruins win in overtime. So.
Yeah, it was a big night for fans. The fan of the game was just some guy who was sitting by himself that they just showed on the Jumbotron like 14 times.
Yeah.
And he kept getting a louder and louder ovation every time.
He was a celebrity for one day, and now no one will know. But
and he was yawning the first time they put him on.
That's why everyone liked him.
Game wasn't exciting enough.
So the Bruins are 11-2-1 over the last 14 games. So the results have been outstanding. Did not see that coming. That said, and I want to give him a pass on the Nashville game because of the travel and the circumstances you were talking about earlier, Scott. Like you're in New York. You have to take a bus ride home late night or the next morning after you had a tough loss, and you're going home to play a game less than 24 hours later against a team that's been in Boston waiting for you. So that's one of those nights where, hey, if you can get the 2 points, you take it and run. And I'm not gonna, overly criticize them for surrendering the lead in the third and whatnot. If they had lost, that's one thing, but it's still tough circumstances. So I want to focus on the 3 game sample before that, because between Vegas, Montreal, and New York, there three of those third periods were kind of polar opposites. The one against Montreal was excellent. In fact, it was their best period of the game by far. But Vegas and New York, I don't like that trend. And again, I know the Bruins have won 11 of their last 14, but I haven't loved those 2 third periods. And obviously, they hung on for dear life against Vegas. I think if there's 5 minutes more in that game, which there wasn't, there's only 60 minutes in a hockey game, but if there was another 5 minutes, I think Vegas maybe ties that game. Obviously, the Rangers found a way to tie the game. And I just let the Bruins let their foot off the gas a bit against New York, and then you go to overtime and it's anybody's game and you lose that game. I think that's a game you should win, all day against a Rangers team that really they don't like going to the rink right now. They're not having a good time. So
yeah, that one, that's the one that really bothers me. Like that's got to be 2 points, and it should be 2 points in regulation. Like that's, like you said, it's a bad team. They're reeling. They've been losing a lot of games recently. Their GM has already announced that they're going to sell. They're going into a retool. Like, yeah, you gotta step on their neck while they're down. Like you gotta bury them in that game. So that was disappointing. They just didn't have kind of that killer instinct to make sure they extend the lead and make sure they hold on for the 2 points. I separate that a little from the Vegas game because again, like I think Vegas is a really good team, and I think it's a bit naive to think that team's just gonna roll over and give you the 2 points. Like, no, they're gonna make a push at some point, and yeah, it shouldn't. Here's what I would say: if that game had gotten tied and ended up in overtime, I'd say you can't blow a 4-0 lead. It's fair to say you shouldn't have even let it become a 4-3 game,
Right.
but you still closed it out. You got the win. You won in regulation. So like I'm not going to get too worked up over that. Like I said, Vegas, really good team. But yeah, the Rangers one that should bother you. Like it's like, yeah, you're playing a back-to-back, but that wasn't the back-to-back game. That was the first game. Like you were down there early. You got your practice in Sunday. Like there shouldn't really have been much of an excuse to be tired or to let your foot off the gas for that one. So, yeah, I mean, you still get a point, and every point counts right now. And the fact that you bounce back with 2 against Nashville is really good. Like ultimately, if you take that 28-hour stretch or whatever, and say you took 3 out of 4 points, like you're pretty happy. But it really should have. Well, I'm going to say it should have been 4 out of 4 because he should have gotten the 2 in New York. But I do wonder, like, if you close that out and you win in New York, does maybe a little more human instinct set in the Nashville game where it's like, well, today sucked, and hey, at least we got the 2 points last night, and then maybe you don't even have a good enough effort to beat Nashville. You know what I mean? So like,
Yep, that's true.
In the grand scheme, you're happy with 3 out of 4, but in the moment, yeah, that New York game's disappointing.
Well, especially they had 10 goals against them the previous game. Maybe Husnudinov could have saved one of his 4 goals for the second game that they played, but yeah, this is something too that I considered doing as my opening shift, which is the fact that they've had such an incredible month of January and their record is what it is, and they even do get the point against New York, right? Like they get a point, they get the overtime point. I think so. They get 2 points against Nashville by winning that in overtime, and you see that they just at the same time, other teams in the Atlantic are on similar stretches where they're winning 7 or 8 of their last 10 games and keeping pace with the Bruins. And I asked Marco Sturm after the game about it, and he said, yeah, it's crazy. That he said he doesn't think he can recall another time like this where you have this kind of a month of January, especially because January is a really tough month. He was saying like it's a grind. And then you look and you're not even moving up in the standings. So they really have been in that wild card spot where it feels like if you have the kind of January that they had, they should have moved up past that point. But because teams like Detroit, Tampa, Buffalo are all winning at the same time, they're not able to make progress and move out of that wild card spot.
Yeah, but what I will say, because that's accurate, and I definitely can understand the frustration of after every win you look at the standings and you haven't gone anywhere. But what they have done is they have gained some separation from the teams chasing them. Like, how many episodes have we done where we've talked about how from like call it 6th to 12th or whatever, it's like separated by 2 or 3 points. Well, now, yeah, the Bruins are still in the second wild card spot, but they're 6 points clear of 9th place. They're 6 points ahead of Florida. Now, Florida does have 2 games in hand, and that is not the team you want to see chasing you, right? Like they're the 2-time defending Cup champs until they're dead for good this season. But like, you've gained some separation from Toronto. You're 8 points ahead of them. Philly has slipped, Washington, New Jersey. Like, you have put some distance between yourself and all those teams to the point where it's like, it's maybe too early to say this, but like, I'm kind of at a point where it's like, it's really just Florida that like, I'm like really worried about from that group. And you're going to see them next week. By the way, you're at their place next Wednesday. So yeah, at some point you'd love to get ahead of one of the other Atlantic teams, be it Montreal or Buffalo or maybe Detroit, and give yourself not just a points bumper, but a team in between that Florida can hunt down. But like, you have put yourself in a pretty good spot, even if you haven't moved up in the standings as much as you'd like.
Yeah, I do want to put numbers to what I was saying too. So the Bruins in the last 10 games are 8-1-1. And then the 3 teams ahead of them, or I should say, technically there's 4 teams ahead of them in the Atlantic because Montreal's also ahead of them. But the 3 teams that are in, first, second, third in the Atlantic in terms of the standings, Tampa Bay, first place, they're also 8-1-1. Detroit, second place, they're 7-2-1. Buffalo, third place, 7-2-1. So everybody has 7 or more wins in the last 10 games there. And then maybe just a little bit of sigh of relief that Montreal only has 5 wins in the last 10 games, but that's, I think they have a tie in there too. So they've actually been over 500 in that stretch too. So yeah, just crazy to look at, and it must be frustrating, but also maybe it's a little bit of extra motivation of like, all right, we know that there's no ability for us to let up at all, even if we win 10 in a row. We're still in jeopardy of not making the playoffs, which sounds crazy when you have the kind of stretch that they did, and they're still in the bottom wild card spot. So yeah, and then they only have 4 games now until the break, and
3 down to 3,
and then 8 games until the trade deadline, right? So.
Well, and this goes back to something.
I think it's 7, and I think it's 3 before and then 4 after.
Don't let me do math, okay? That's what it comes down to.
This goes back to something I mentioned recently, that the Bruins have a chance to do something. I wrote about this that they haven't done all year, which is string together consecutive extended winning streaks or winning stretches of hockey. Like this is their season split up so far into fragments. Okay, they started the year 3-0. Then they went 0-6. Then they went 8-1. Then 5-5. Then 4-0. Then 1-5-2. Okay, and then since that 7-game losing streak or 6-game losing streak, whatever it was, they've gone 11-2-1. And now in that 11-2-1 stretch is a 6-game winning streak. Okay, then Dallas snaps it. So you have a 6-game winning streak over, and now they're 3-0-1. Okay, they haven't been able to do that this year, and the job's not done. Like this is what we were talking about before. Can you beat Philly? Can you make it 4-0-1? Can you sneak 1 of 2 against Tampa and Florida and go 5-1-1 or 5-0-2, whatever it is? They haven't done that. They've had 2 extended winning streaks this year. I think one was 7 games, 8 of 9. One was 6 games, 8 of 9. But those were followed up with stretches of either losing hockey or 500 hockey at best. This is what they haven't been able to do this year, which is gain separation, to the conversation you guys were just having.
Yeah, and it's been like you said, streaky. Like you win, and that's why that loss in Dallas, especially with it was a big loss, 6-2, but weren't they down? Was it 6-0 at one point? I was broadcasting something at that time, but that was Beanpot Day, I think. But that's why that Vegas game was so important. They come back and they beat a good team. They win, and now here we are, and they changed it right back up this direction rather than just the tumbling down the hill that's been happening after losses.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the other thing they haven't done is that they haven't lost 2 in a row in a month since the end of that 6-game losing streak that wrapped around Christmas. The 3 times they've lost, they've bounced right back with the win. So that was, another really encouraging thing about Tuesday night is, even with all the travel issues and all that, like any excuse you'd want to make, they were determined to make sure it wasn't going to be 2 losses in a row. So, that's a good thing to start to build into your identity is, hey, we're not going to lose 2 in a row, or if we lose 2 in a row, we're not going to lose 3 in a row, right? Like, because that hasn't been part of they've had 2 prolonged losing streaks where they were unable to pull themselves out of it after just a game or 2 or even 3. So, that's another encouraging sign, another sign of or a mark of a team that gets to the playoffs is like, don't let losses snowball. And we'll see if they keep it up. But for the last month, they've avoided that.
Yeah, and two of their longest winning streaks this year, fortunately, saved their seasons, in my opinion. But unfortunately, they spent so much of their energy on those wins doing damage control that those wins weren't able to propel them away from teams. And now with each win, they're finally gaining the luxury of being able to, swim away from some of the teams behind them. So you mentioned Florida, Scott. They're the one that's still kind of there, but beyond them, it's those teams behind Florida. They got some serious work to do because they just do, right? I mean, New Jersey's not doing well. Toronto is on the verge of selling, I think. That was some talk driving in this morning. I'm listening to NHL radio, and Elliot Friedman's talking about how he thinks Toronto might be sellers this year, like that. So I mean, and I think that we've talked about this year for Toronto feels a lot like last year for the Bruins. I've felt that way since November. So.
And Nylander, how long has he been out? And there was obviously that controversy with him the other day, flipping off the camera. But I think people I saw a lot of fans were like, who cares? But I think a lot of fans are also like, what are we doing here? Like, you need to take this a little bit more seriously. But yeah, they're now 9 points out of a wild card spot. I believe the Bruins have 65 points. They have 57. So they're 8 points out. And so is Philly. But
it's just not a good look
and they're trending the wrong way, right? Like Philly only has 2 wins in their last 10 games. Only has 3 wins in their last 10 games.
Yeah, I mean the Nylander thing, like, listen, grand scheme, obviously it's not a big deal, but it's not a good look. I'm sorry. It's would you ever see, pictures? Yeah, like think of any serious organization that carries themselves the right way, like that's a winning culture. Like, is Nathan McKinnon doing that?
I don't even think Brad Marchand's doing that.
I mean, Brad Marchand had his moments for sure, but like, it's not a good look when you're floundering the way that you are and you're just laughing.
Yeah, I was gonna say you can have a proud, happy flip off like Andrew Ference in Montreal, but the sad, disappointed flip off, that's you don't want that.
Yeah, it's just not a good look for them. Okay. So what else?
Yeah, what else? I was gonna say though, just quickly on Toronto, like I think selling is probably the right thing for them, but also could potentially be great for the Bruins, because if they sell but don't bottom out enough and don't end up in the top 5, like, man, that is terrific news for the Bruins.
Yeah, now Bruins can have a top 10 pick as long as it's not.
Now if they sell and like really bottom out and then end up in the top 5, obviously they keep their pick, but like there's some really bad Western Conference teams that you'd have to get below. Like the Western Conference has 4 teams under 50 points, and Toronto's got 57. So, and then you get like the Rangers way down in the East. So that scenario is very much in play.
Yeah, they're 11th from, like, they would have the 11th pick pre-lottery. Like, that's where they would naturally be right now. So,
and if they had the
top 10, but they would, I don't know how you're getting past Calgary and Vancouver and even like Winnipeg. There's some teams here that'll, and New York's going to be selling, so they're going to be maybe falling even more.
Even if they do finish with the 5th overall pick pre-lottery, we all know all it takes is one team behind them to jump up, and then they go down to 6.
Yeah, so that's probably going to be, like, more likely than not. That's going to remain a Bruins pick in the trade for
think
Carlo. So. And so if it's top 10 or right around 10, rather than if they made the playoffs and you're talking about like in the 20s, that's a big difference. And this is a pretty deep draft. Most people will tell you up to right around that, 12 to 15 area. It's pretty deep this year.
Now, never underestimate the NHL's ability to somehow just maybe crazily luck into favorable lottery result because I don't know, Gavin McKenna in Toronto would probably be pretty good for business.
Yeah, but what if you give Boston the 6 overall? That's pretty good too. You got Hagens and then another guy that you draft like 6 or 7 in that area. Like, come on, that'd be good too. That's on another market that maybe could handle the players, manage them well enough. I don't know. But yeah, I mean that's going to be a second half, not even second half. We're in the second half of the season. But like post trade deadline, that's going to be a huge topic that I'm sure we'll keep an eye on, and so will everyone else, because that's the difference between, getting some guy that, say at like 25 that you're not sure what his future is, to getting a guy in the top 10 that could be James Hagen's caliber. So
speaking of Toronto and reaping the benefits of potentially their first round pick, in real time, Fraser Minten continues to give us some reward from that trade. He has 14 points in his last 13 games. Did I see that somewhere?
I think it's 13 in his last 14.
13 and 14. I mean, the first goal of the night for the Bruins against Nashville is a clean faceoff won by him and a net drive that makes it difficult for Saros to see Lindholm's shot. So, I mean, again, just another example of just nothing flashy. One faceoff, go to the net, do the right thing, and just be a disruptor. Another good moment for the young player.
Yeah, and after Elias Lindholm went down, it was Minten getting most of the shifts with Pastrnak. Obviously, there was, some rotation, and you're still trying to use everyone, but there were a lot of Minten Pastrnak shifts after that, with either Geekie on the left or Husnudinov on the left. So, if Lindholm were to miss any games, I would think that might be what Sturm goes to is Minten centering Pastrnak, and he's showing the offensive growth to certainly in a pinch be used in that kind of role. And again, like
too.
What's that?
When it was Husnudinov, Minten, Pasta, aka the 3 kids, they've been together a little bit too.
Yeah, like he's started flashing some offense that, as I said before, makes you start to think like, hey, maybe this is more than just a really good third line center. Like there may very well be top 6 upside there still untapped. So yeah, I mean, it's already been and will remain a slam dunk of a trade for the Bruins. And I know, it's been a major point of regret for Toronto fans. Like every time when I tweeted that about Minten 13 points in his last 14 games, it's like, it always just finds its way to Leafs Twitter, and like their fans are just like, why did we trade this guy? Like, what the hell were they thinking? Fire tree living, like all this stuff. Like it's already a pretty decisive one trade.
Yeah, well, right now, Carlo has 4 assists in 30 games, no goals. He's a +4. And then last year for Toronto, what did he do last year for them? He had 20 games played, no goals, 3 assists, 3 points. So he's got 7 points in 50 games for them. And he's been a plus player. But yeah, it's
I was gonna say,
has been great.
Like Carlo was good when he first got there, and playoffs was up and down, but yeah, I mean this season's been tough. Although, like, admittedly, I haven't followed his individual play super closely. Like, I know he got off to a tough start, and fans are all over him. But yeah, it's he. By the way, like, he's a name that, if you talk about the Leafs selling, like, he's a name that pops up as maybe one of the candidates to be moved. Bruins could use a right shot defenseman.
They could.
Well, I'm just looking now. I'm over here just looking at 10 and 11 in the draft, and right shot defenseman who we've talked about before, Chase Reed, is right there. He's
going higher than that. Chase Reed's not going to be there at 11.
Where Chris Peters had him maybe pre or just after the World Juniors, but yeah, he's in that. He'll be in the 5 to 10 range, don't you think?
He might be top 5.
You think?
Yeah.
There's a few other guys in that range, though. A few other defensemen.
Yeah, Ryan Lynn, Daxon Rudolph. Those guys are probably somewhere in like the 8 to 14 range. Keaton Veerhoff goes higher.
Yeah, I saw that he projected top 5. So
yeah.
I mean, you never know though, guys. I mean, teams get squirrely. They get squirrely towards. I mean, we saw it last year because we were heavily anticipating the draft, and
we're gonna have
to... Brady Martin's stock rose.
Yeah.
Astronomically in the last month before the draft. So you really just never know what happens. I mean, you have an idea of ranges, you think, right? But then you just never know on draft day.
Well, yeah, and this time last year, Hagens was still ranked top 3 most places. And then come leading up to the draft, where you start to hear rumblings of, no, this team actually likes this person better, and this team probably going to go with this center and whatnot. And the fact there was so many good centers, he dropped more. But yeah, we don't have to do this quite yet.
No.
We might be back in our into the draft, our draft episodes, our projection episodes, if Toronto's pick's going to be somewhere similar.
Well, unless they do something unforeseen, the Bruins are still going to have two first-round picks, and they both very well may be top 20 picks. I mean, the Bruins can make the playoffs and still have the 17th overall pick, especially if they're a wild card too. That talk about the best of both worlds. Bruins make the playoffs. They do some internal building and growth with all these younger players, and then you got two picks in the top 17. We'll be having draft conversation about that because you can get some real players, even if it's 15 and 17, let alone if it's possibly top 10. So, guys, did you happen to see the digital rendering of the Stadium Series atmosphere that Scott will be at in person? Pretty cool. They did a good job of that.
Yeah, looks like a treasure map.
It looks like NHL hits.
Yeah.
I think it's cool. I think if you're gonna I think that the Winter Classic in that Miami Dome I felt like I was watching a Pitbull music video. I mean, this is how you do an outdoor game in Florida. By the way, Scott, dress warm because it's gonna be 40 degrees, I think.
I know. Yeah, the NHL is not going to have any issues with the ice unless it ends up raining. But yeah, it's going to be a chilly weekend down in Tampa. So I also I'll make sure I get social video up for it. But so they practice there Saturday, so both teams have a practice scheduled for Saturday. But they have this giant maybe people have seen pictures of it because I think it's up now. This giant, basically military style tent, climate controlled, covering the rink all the way up until Sunday. They'll finally take it off a little bit before the game. And the idea was protected from Florida heat and sun. Turns out they might not even need it. It might not even be warm enough, but they have that up. So they're practicing under that on Saturday. And they send out told media, our schedule for the weekend and all that. And as of now, we're not allowed inside the tent, but they're the practice will be streamed on the Jumbotron. So we can go to watch practice, sit in the press box and watch it on the Jumbotron. That's going to be one of the sillier practice watching experiences I've had.
Well, we'll have more time to talk about that on Friday and certainly when you get back next week. You know who else isn't allowed somewhere right now? I'm going to take a little detour. Is Bill Belichick in the Football Hall of Fame, at least on the first ballot. What are we doing with this?
That's a joke.
I mean, you know what it is. It's all politics. They're trying to...
These people are clowns. They should lose their vote. They shouldn't be in part of this process. And by the way, the fact that they can remain anonymous and not come forward if they don't want to is insane. If you vote for something like this, the vote should be public. It is in pretty much every other sports award honors voting system. The BBWAA votes for Baseball Hall of Fame. You can look up everyone's vote every year. It's all public.
Hence how we got the Dan Shaughnessy, the angry David Ortiz calling out Dan Shaughnessy because he didn't vote for him.
Like, I have a vote for NHL awards at the end of the season. After those awards are announced, you can look that up. All of our votes are public. You can see exactly who I voted for and how I ranked them, as it should be. Like, if you're like, I take a lot of pride in those votes, and I think they're meaningful. Like, I know those awards mean something to players, so you take it seriously, and having a transparent process forces you to take it more seriously, right? Because if you leave off someone because maybe he was mean to you in an interview one time, people are going to call you out for it and be like, you really let a personal grudge affect your vote. Like, and that's how it should be. Like, you should get called out if you let stuff like that affect your vote. Meanwhile, at least 11 of them who didn't vote for Bill Belichick to be a Hall of Famer, because it's a committee of 50 people, you have to get 40 votes to get in. They just get to hide. Like, they don't, there's no accountability. They don't need to explain themselves. And it's like, it's obviously like some sort of personal grudge. These are probably people who just don't like Bill Belichick personally.
Well,
but it's like, but that's not what you're voting for. You're not voting for was nice to me for 20 years. You're voting for, is he a Hall of Fame coach? The guy has won more Super Bowls than anyone. He has the second most wins of all time. Like, what are we doing? Like,
I love it.
You're a clown. Like, you're not taking your responsibility seriously.
I love how fired up this got, Scott. And honestly, it's I think we all are like, because here's the thing. It's what you said. It's all politics. It's people who Bill probably climbed over along the way, or, you know, to Bridget's point that she was making, like, they're gonna cling to the Spygate. It's like, it's all fucking nonsense. It's all politics. There are certain people where if you give them a little bit of control, they abuse it and want to make it about them. And that's what it is. And even Patrick Mahomes, which, you know, tip of the cap to him, comes out and tweeted as well. He's like, that is mind numbing. Imagine being a coach right now in the NFL and being like, so if I head coach 6 Super Bowl champions, go to the Super Bowl 9 times as a head coach, have 8 titles as a coach in general, I'm not a first ballot Hall of Famer. That's sending such a bad stuff about Spygate and Deflategate. Give me a break. Give me a break. I mean, seriously, Deflategate's the biggest joke that I've ever heard in my life. They won that game by how many points? 70. And then Spygate. Listen, different time and place. I don't think the Patriots were the only team doing that back in the day. But be that as it may, you don't hold the guy out from a first ballot. Come on. It's all politics. And that's unfortunately the way of the world these days. Everything has to get political. Vote the fucking guy into the Hall of Fame. He's the greatest coach of all time. Well, you know, he's 500 or less without Brady. All right. Okay, cool. Well, how about the 20 years with Brady? And you know, you want to talk about Don Shula? Fine. Like, put him in the same category. But it's just insane. Absolutely insane.
Like, come on. Like, that's, to me, it was a joke. It's like, I was shocked, but I guess maybe we shouldn't have been shocked because of the way that people just dislike him. And I do think that too, like, everybody knows, like, he deserves to be it, even though he's not going to be it on the first ballot. Like, I don't know how many it takes, but if he never makes it, that would be the crazy part.
No,
like,
he'll be unanimous second time.
Yeah.
He'll be unanimous second time. But that's the part that's annoying, is that the people who didn't vote him in right now, as the three of us speak, and everybody else in the sporting world and just people in general, everybody's talking about this. They got what they wanted. They wanted people to talk about this because this is their payback to Bill Belichick. Oh, fuck you, Bill. You know, you did what you did over the years. You rolled over us. You did that. Now we want the whole world talking about how you didn't get your first ballot Hall of Fame. Ha ha, we win. No, you don't win, because you're still, to Scott's point, you're no names. You're anonymous. You know, so it's just people, like I said, it's people abusing something to make it about themselves and whatever. I mean, I think Bill's kind of been a bit of a joke of an individual the last year anyway, with how he's handled stuff with UNC and, you know, his 20-year-old girlfriend. I'm not crying. I'm not gonna sit here and cry over Bill Belichick's life. I'm just saying, you know, his NFL career, his football career speaks for itself, despite the last year and how things ended in New England. Anyway,
and despite the college football record and everything that he's done there, that's not part of this.
it's really not. It's really not. But anyway, thanks for listening to the Uprights podcast. And any final takes from you two before we go?
No, I don't think so. I think I'm good.
All right. Well, thank you all very much for listening. Enjoy Bruins Flyers on Thursday, and we'll be back on Friday to talk about that. Take care. Hey guys, thanks for watching the Skate Podcast. If you want to see more of our videos, visit our playlist.
Not in front of a screen? You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Don't forget to follow us on social media. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment.